everyone. My name is Waleed, and I want to welcome you to my channel. I want to thank you for taking a little bit of your time to spend some time with me. I hope that you will like and subscribe. I hope that you will watch this video to the end. Again, my name is Waleed. I own a pest control company here in New York called A-List Exterminator. And A-List Exterminator is one of the most highly ranked pest control companies on Google when people are doing a search for pest control companies here in New York City. A-List Exterminator is one of the first to pop up. I want to do a reaction video, and this is a pest related video. So let's get into this video. I'm going to react to it, and I hope you guys will enjoy.
As the old saying goes, there's no place like home. But while you may love your home for its warmth, comfort, and security, so can a whole host of creepy crawlies. Left unchecked, swarms of stink bugs, tons of termites, and even barrels of bees can move in, and worse, take over. Although the scale of some infestations are way more gross and scary than others. So take a deep breath and try not to barf as we take a look at some of the worst bug-infested houses ever. Cockroach calamity. On a May morning in 2017, serviceman Philip Todd answered a call to a house in Atlanta, Georgia. Philip didn't think he'd have to deal with anything more than a faulty boiler or a broken faucet. But when he arrived, he found himself face to antenna with a much more nauseating problem. The house was overrun with cockroaches. They were in the trash, on the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Nowhere was safe. And it was clear whoever lived there was happily living alongside this insane infestation. Ugh. Now, you might be judging that homeowner for not cleaning their home and getting rid of the roaches, but cockroaches are hard to catch. They're fast, with American cockroaches able to move at speeds of up to 50 body lengths per second. That's the equivalent of a human running at speeds of up to 210 miles an hour. And roaches have no problem living in large numbers either. There's no way of telling how many Philip had to deal with, but in 2019, thousands of roaches were discovered in a single sewer manhole over in Australia. So at least he wasn't there. Able to use even the smallest openings, they can infest almost anywhere, as Anastasios Theoharis discovered. The construction worker was working on a house in Sydney, Australia, when he noticed the property's telephone was out of use. Spotting what looked like dirt beneath the casing, Anastasios pried it open and was met with one nasty surprise. Well, I think we can safely say that phone has been bugged. Bed bugs bite.
Now, one of the things that I can say about that roach scenario or that roach segment is that that's for a home to become infested with roaches to that level is really unforgivable. This is just a situation where people are just comfortable living with their roaches and they're not in any particular hurry to do anything about it, or they don't see any real need to do anything about it, because there's no way that a home should be that infested with roaches. Either maybe people have mental health issues, and are totally unaware of what's happening around them. Maybe these are elderly people that are totally unaware of what's happening around them. But there's no way that anyone should let their home get that infested. And one of the simplest things that you can do to prevent roaches is clean your fucking place. Clean up. Eliminate the food and the water and the garbage. And that alone would make a huge impact on the roaches. My goodness, that's disgusting.
Considering New York City is the 12th most bedbug infested city in the whole of America, the Terminators of Nyack's Global Pest Solutions must have thought they'd seen it all. But even these seasoned professionals admitted that one case from 2014 counted as unquestionably the worst thing they'd ever seen.
Now that we moved that, they're going to have nowhere to go. So you see they're just going in a circle. They're not really running too far.
Blech. With bugs and blood splattered throughout the entire house, these Terminators were stunned at the sheer scale of the untreated infestation. The bedbugs hadn't just swarmed the mattress, they were also peppered all over the pillowcases, splattered up the walls, and even infested the bathroom. Ugh, I'm getting itchy just looking at this. Now, bedbugs usually feed by sucking our blood while we sleep, so where better for them to nest than our mattresses? And the longer the problem is left untreated, the more they reproduce. Makes you wonder how long this person hadn't cleaned their house for, considering the huge number of bugs gathered here. I'd be surprised if they had any blood left in their body. Well, even if you try and starve bedbugs to death, they can survive for almost 5 months before that happens. And all that time, they'll be waiting, laying egg after egg after egg, growing in both number and hunger. Thank God that's not your house, right? Well, it could be. You see, it's estimated bedbugs are present in 19% of public transportation systems, 35% of hospitals, 45% of college dorms, 46% of offices, 47% of schools and daycare centers, and a whopping 59% of homes. So chances are, you're dealing with a bedbug infestation right now. While they may not grow to the monumental numbers they've achieved in this footage, 1 in 5 Americans will have to deal with a bedbug infestation at some stage in their lives. Time to burn absolutely everything I own, I guess. While I'm busy nuking my house, why don't you get busy hitting those like and subscribe buttons below? Go on, you knew you want to. All done? I knew you were my favorite for a reason. Alright, what horrors have we got next? The House of 100%.
Now, when it comes to bed bugs, I've seen some really bad bed bug cases in the 26 years that I've been doing pest control. One of the worst bed bug infestation was a situation where there was an elderly couple, both the husband and wife were in their 90s. The husband was like around 94, the wife was like about 92 years old. And it had gotten to a point where they're being up in age, and it became their family became very concerned for them as they were getting older. They were much older now, and they were not able to take care of themselves. And so the family started to make arrangements for this couple to start getting services that they needed. So that would allow them to stay in their home. They started, arranging for visiting nurses and delivery of groceries and meals and all kinds of services that they would need in their home. But when they started to get all of these services in their home, there came a point where um, home health aides came into the home, and some nurses came into the home, and when they sat on the sofa, they were immediately overrun with bed bugs just coming out of the furniture and just completely trying to just eat them up. And they were like, oh my God, this is crazy. We can't work in this kind of environment. Something has to be done. The place has to be treated before we can work and before these elderly people can get any services. And these elderly people apparently had been in this home for many years, and the bed bugs were eating them up for so many years that they were kind of anemic. They were they were losing so much blood every night because there was so many bed bugs swarming them and eating them alive. If there was a silver lining in this situation, the silver lining would have been that in this part of Brooklyn, the homes were freestanding homes. They weren't attached to any other homes. So the bed bugs would not have been able to migrate to other homes or other apartments. A lot of New York City, and a lot of the buildings in New York City are attached to other buildings. So one person's problem eventually can become other people's problem as well. But in this situation, the homes were totally detached. So the hell and the nightmare that these elderly people were living through was their nightmare and theirs alone. The bed bugs wouldn't have been able to spread out to other homes because they were totally detached.
No. If you suffer from arachnophobia, look away now. Okay, can't say I didn't warn you.
Ajá. Su madre. Ve, ya están cayendo todas. ¡Corre!
Yep, that's not clumps of furry mold growing on the ceiling of this outdoor hut. That's spiders. Apiliones to be precise, also known as harvestmen, harvesters, or daddy longlegs. And it looks like they've been up in the rafters of this hut breeding for quite some time. My god, there must have been thousands of the eight-legged freaks up there. Ugh. But while the sheer amount of these harvestmen look terrifying, they're not the worst pests to have infest your home. Harvestmen don't really cause damage, discounting.
One of the things that I have to dispute when it comes to this video is that daddy longlegs or harvestmen technically aren't spiders. They're very similar to spiders, but they're not spiders. Uh, uh, Daddy longlegs, unlike spiders, if they lose a limb, they cannot. If they lose a leg, they can't grow it back. Daddy longlegs don't have webs. Spiders. All spiders have some kind of web, some kind of silk, and they can make spider webs. And daddy longlegs don't do that. Daddy longlegs don't have spiders. They can have 6 to 8 eyes. Harvestmen or daddy longlegs only have one set of eyes. There's a lot of very distinct differences. Daddy longlegs are not spiders, and at some point I'm going to do a video about the differences between spiders and daddy longlegs so that people can understand the difference.
Aesthetic damage, I guess. And while they may frighten your homeowner, they can't bite humans or produce venom. Most of the time, harvestmen will simply head straight for your basements, crawl spaces, and
Case in point, spiders can bite humans, and many species of spiders do produce venoms. Daddy longlegs don't.
garages. The spiders prefer to live in damp, shaded areas like on trees or beneath rocks, preying on any smaller insects they come across. But if you're not an insect lover like me, you still don't want them creating a furry carpet on your ceiling. So much nope in one video. Ant attack. It was the holiday of a lifetime for biker Tim Zaman. When he made a road trip to South America, he loved everything about the trip. Well, almost everything. While he'd surely seen some crazy things out on the road, nothing was quite so extraordinary as the morning in Mexico he sat down for breakfast and saw this. It was thousands upon thousands of ants moving like a waterfall in reverse up the side of a house he was staying in. As much as that makes me itch, it's also kind of mesmerizing compared to other infestations. So how come ants all know how to move in the same direction? Well, almost all ant colonies constantly communicate with each other when traveling. And no, that doesn't mean they're asking each other for directions. They do this using pheromones, chemical substances released by insects to influence the behavior of other members of their species. When traveling, ants secrete a chemical trail of pheromones for the other ants to follow, guiding the colony in a straight line along the quickest route possible. And if the quickest route possible is through your house, then there's nothing you can do to stop them. In America, there are more than 700 ant species, although only 25 of them will invade your home. You could invest in a few bottles of Raid to try and keep them at bay, but against a colony this size, it'd probably be easier to just move. Termite terror. Chris the Man Taylor.
Now, one of the things that I will say about ants are, we get a lot of calls from people who have problems with ants, and ants is a very, very common call for us, and we deal with ants for our customers all the time. But ants, in most cases, there are and here in New York City, at least, there are no ants that are known to be biting people. It's not like it places in the Caribbean or places in the South, like in Florida or Texas, where they have fire ants or different types of ants that are actually biting us. Here in New York City, we don't deal with that. And here in New York, the only kind of ant that we deal with that might be damaging is a carpenter ant. Carpenter ants will do some damage to wood and wooden structures and wooden parts of a home. The damage that they would be doing is not quite as extensive and is not quite as aggressive as the damage that would be caused by termites. Carpenter ants. For carpenter ants, the wood is a very different thing for them as opposed to what the wood is for termites. For carpenter ants, the wood is a place for them to live. The colonies hollow out parts of the wood, and they'll live inside of the wood. As opposed to termites, the wood is actually food, and termites have a very huge appetite, and over time they will eat a home and to completely destroy a home. So, but for the most part, ants are just a nuisance pest, and ants tend to be here in New York City. They are more of a seasonal pest. You might start seeing them in the springtime. You might see them throughout the summer, and then by the time fall approaches, the colder weather and the colder temperatures causes them to retreat, and they'll go away after. So ants are more of a seasonal problem here in New York City.
Has really earned his nickname. A Terminator for forensic pest management based in Sydney, Australia, Chris is the guy you call if you wind up with some unwanted roomies. He specializes in bird control and, in a true sign of the man's courage, termites.
That's why you must get your house checked at least once every 12 months.
That's Chris now showing us one of the largest termite nests he's ever had to remove, which was inside the wall of someone's house. But the more Chris peeled away, the more evident it became that this termite nest was so huge it had enveloped every single wall of the room. Termites build these giant nests, which are more like mud tubes, to reach food sources and protect themselves from open air. When out on the prowl, termites eat wood constantly. Like, constantly. 24/7. The critters use their sawtooth jaws to break off fragments of wood one teeny-weeny piece at a time, but it all adds up. Each year, it's estimated they cause more than $5 billion in property damage. Now, in an average year, you can expect a single termite queen to lay between 5,000 and 10,000 eggs. 60,000 termites is considered a mature colony, with typical colony sizes ranging anywhere between 60,000 and 2 million. In those numbers, termites can cause extensive structural damage to buildings, just like this one. Thank God the man with a plan was there. Stink bug scourge.
Now, when it comes to termites, um, if a person has a termite issue and they don't know about it, it's kind of understandable. It's kind of harder to detect uh, termites. You know, they stay hidden and they don't like to be visible. They're not crawling around on surfaces. They don't like the open air. They're behind the walls. They're in darker places, and termites can be destroying a house for many years before um, they are discovered. Uh, it I would recommend getting your home inspected, at least once a year, at least once every couple of years at least. And you can be vigilant. You should look around in your basements, especially if you have unfinished basements here in New York City. If you have unfinished basements, and do a walkthrough of your basement, you'll sometimes see evidence of termites. Uh, I get a lot of calls from customers who find out that they have termites when the termites start swarming. Both termites and ants at certain times of the year, they will produce more members of their colonies that have wings for the purpose of them to uh, fly off to other areas to start new colonies. And sometimes that's the only way some people discover that they have termites. Some people may discover that they have termites because they might take on a new construction project, or they might take on some serious renovating. And they might start uh, ripping down walls or tearing down ceilings and doing some demolition work. And when they start opening things up, they start discovering extremely damaged wood. And sometimes people accidentally discover that they have a termite problem that way. So, yeah, termites can be a very serious and very costly uh, pest control problem.
Day October 7th, 2021 would live long in the memory of an unsuspecting woman in Hanson, Kentucky. Like 84% of American houses, the woman's home was kitted out with an indoor air conditioner. While essential for the sweltering Kentucky summers, the air conditioners also offered an open door to a few unwelcome guests. When she peeled back the security tape, the woman was assaulted by a mass of hair-raising, foul-smelling stink bugs. Panicking, the woman began attacking the stink bugs with a vacuum cleaner. She hoped that would be the end of the gruesome invasion, but the stink bugs weren't going to leave her alone that easily. When she returned to her bedroom, she discovered the stink bugs had already started making her house their new home. Could you imagine waking up to see these creepy crawlies right next to your head? I'd be flailing around like her too. However, when you're face to face with a stink bug, you shouldn't get too aggressive. When threatened, stink bugs release a putrid, noxious chemical from a gland on their abdomen, which they spray everywhere. So they're creepy and stinky. Thanks for that, Mother Nature. Now, these bugs aren't just found in Kentucky, as Jeff from Morgantown, West Virginia discovered.
I just got home to find these puppies all up in my grill.
When Jeff came home from work in 2012, he found his home overrun by stink bugs. It was completely covered in them, and he estimated there were at least a few thousand around the property. But how could so many have appeared so quickly? Well, stink bugs lay between roughly 30 to 100 eggs, meaning they can multiply at an extraordinarily fast rate. To make matters worse, stink bugs have very few natural predators in the US, so their numbers just keep growing and growing and growing. I don't want to freak you out, but if you're in the US, that could mean a stink bug infestation is coming your way very soon. Ladybug lunacy. It was a November day like any other.
Stink bugs isn't a very common problem here in New York City. In 26 years that I've been doing pest control, I can't even tell you how many times that we've had to deal with. I don't remember ever dealing with stink bugs uh, here in New York City as a pest control professional. So thank God we don't really have to deal with that. Yeah.
Back in 2015 when Roger Stevenson noticed something different about his home in Stone County, Arkansas.
And for those of you who thought I was kidding about 18 billion of them, check this out.
By Roger's own count, millions of ladybugs had swarmed his house. Now, maybe I just don't go outside enough, but I don't think I've ever seen more than 2 ladybugs together, let alone a swarm. Well, in Arkansas, the presence of ladybugs means winter is coming. From the middle of October to early November, as temperatures cool, ladybugs can be found swarming on the sunny side of houses, trying to find somewhere warm and dry to spend the winter. The same stunt is done by ladybug's cousins, Asian lady beetles, which Reddit user Boilermaker105 found out when thousands swarmed his work in Ohio back in 2014. Not only do these beetles release a putrid defensive fluid that stains whatever it touches, it also smells vile, making them absolute stinkers to remove. Now, ladybugs were introduced to the United States by the Department of Agriculture as a biological control agent. So while they can be a nuisance, they are adept at consuming crop-eating bugs like aphids and mites. So in a way, we have a lot to thank ladybugs for, even if they do leave one heck of a mess. Nest.
Now, one of the things that I think that a lot of people who know what ladybugs are don't realize about ladybugs is that they are serious predators. As they mentioned in that just a second ago, ladybugs were introduced to the United States to take on other insects that were destroying crops and agriculture. And a lot of people think that ladybugs are very pretty and they're very fascinating, but they don't realize that ladybugs are very proficient hunters. Yeah.
Nightmare. With 20 years experience in beekeeping under his belt, professional exterminator Jude Verrett must have thought he'd seen it all. But no amount of beekeeping could have prepared Jude for the sight he discovered in Louisiana back in 2017. Those ain't bees, those are wasps. And not just any wasps, yellow jackets. These notoriously aggressive predatory pests are famous for their defensive behaviors, as they swarm and sting repeatedly if they sense danger. They also tend to build their nests on the ground in naturally defended spots like burrows and crevices. But this swarm had discovered an old shed and decided to colonize the floor of the entire thing.
They got more nests here. Oh,
Luckily, Jude was more than up to the task of removing them. Over the course of 45 minutes, he stripped the entire nest from old storage boxes and garden tools without getting stung even once. Forget your queen bees. This guy is a yellow jacket clearing king. But this wasn't the last time Jude had to tackle a yellow jacket nest. He was called out to a house in Dulac, Louisiana, back in 2021, where he had to do battle with this colossal hive.
Southern yellow jackets. They've been there. 3 feet tall.
The yellow jackets had attached their nest to the underside of a house, which was up so high, Jude had no choice but to clear it out with his hands. I'm surprised he was able to reach up that high, considering he was carrying such massive balls of steel. He wasted no time getting right into the heart of the nest, ripping out everything he could get his hands on. And the yellow jackets were not happy. Jude estimated that there were more than 1 million wasps in the colony, which sounds like one heck of an exaggeration. But nests containing millions of yellow jackets have been recorded before. And even though he was being pelted by 1 million angry wasps from all sides, he still finished the job. Now that, kids, is what you call a professional. B.
Now, in the last clip, this guy kept going back and forth between saying yellow jackets, wasps, bees, and that's very confusing. Um, uh, you know, what I was seeing in that previous segment was um yellow jackets and wasps. I didn't see any bees. I know that in a lot of places in the U.S., bees are endangered, and bees are very important because they produce honey, and a lot of people enjoy honey for many different purposes. So I just wish that he would be a little more precise in the way that he was describing those insects in the previous segments. Yeah.
Be brave. Of all the animals you might worry about infesting your home, you wouldn't think bees were one of them, would you? Well, as it turns out, the hollow spaces in walls, floors, and roofs provide the perfect protection for bees to build their hives undisturbed, and to some truly gargantuan proportions. Back in 2019, the bee experts of Queensland, Australia's Brisbane backyard bees were called to clear a hive in a residential ceiling. At first, they assumed it was a small hive containing a few hundred bees at most, but as they removed the paneling, they discovered a humongous 8-foot-long hive which was housing some 60,000 bees.
Beautiful hive here. Lots of honey in this one.
Now, unlike their hornet cousins, bees are less aggressive, so the experts were able to gently remove the hive from the ceiling in sections, honey and all, without agitating them. The bees were so docile, the experts were able to vacuum them up into a container for safe relocation. Talk about being a couple of heroes.
And that's another thing, again, bees are different from wasps and yellow jackets. Bees are pollinators. Bees do produce honey. And as you can see, as they were removing that bee nest, they were encountering a lot of honey. Now, in a lot of states, it's illegal to kill bees because, as I mentioned before, bees are endangered. For one reason or another, bees are endangered. I noticed that in this video here, as they were removing the bees, they were kind of vacuuming them up, and they were probably going to relocate them someplace else, as opposed to killing them outright, like they were doing with the yellow jackets and wasps. Yeah.
Mosquito madness. There are insects I hate. There are insects I despise. And then there are mosquitoes. Just hearing one of those little bloodsuckers buzzing around your room is enough to drive you mad. But what if your house was infested with an entire swarm of them, like this one from 2014?
Look at the mosquitoes. These are mosquitoes by my back door. Look at the door, how infested they are.
Oh, I do not envy this New Yorker. It looks like there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands there. If I were him, I'd have set fire to the entire city. Ugh.
Look at them all. It's crazy. Has anybody's door ever looked like this with mosquitoes before?
But what were so many of them doing here? Well, warm and wet weather that evening had provided the perfect breeding conditions for a massive swarm of these particular pests. Female mosquitoes lay their pupa in rafts of up to 300 in stagnant water. The pupa then emerge from the water when it becomes an adult, which, depending on the conditions, can happen all at the same time. So if you live in a warm, wet area next to a source of standing water, be sure to invest in some heavy-duty mosquito nets. You're gonna need them.
That was the one thing that I was going to say about that mosquito segment. One thing that I can say is that in my 26 years of doing pest control and providing pest control services, I've never seen a mosquito problem that was that bad, where the mosquitoes were covering the building or covering doors and covering windows to that extent. um, before he mentioned it, I was thinking to myself that these people must live somewhere where there is standing water and lots of standing water for the mosquito population to be that out of control. If there's water that's moving like a river or a lake, uh, the mosquitoes cannot uh, use that water for breeding. Mosquitoes need water that is perfectly still, perfectly standing, uh, uh, and perfectly still water, like in a bucket, or if there's a hole in the ground where there's no movement. Those are perfect places where mosquitoes like to move their eggs. If there's movement in that water, then any larvae that might be in that water would die. Um, if there's movement in the water, then the mosquitoes wouldn't even consider laying their eggs in the water. They just wouldn't be able to do it. So, if uh, here in New York City, one of the things that we advise people to do is make sure that there is no standing water on your property. That's one um, very important way of preventing the mosquitoes from having a place to lay eggs.
Loco locusts. Making her way through St. Clair Shores in Michigan, Katie Williams was gazing out at the routine all American streets. But all of a sudden, she drove past a house that looked like it had been struck by one of the biblical plagues. She couldn't believe her eyes when she saw this condo was completely covered in locusts. They're on the walls, on the intercom, and you can even hear ones on the road crunching under her tires. Gross. Were the homeowners waiting inside oblivious to this? Or had they concluded the locust pylon was a curse from God and fled the scene? Well, whatever they did, it might have comforted them to know that locusts are just a species of grasshopper. While introverted grasshopper species live solitarily, locusts are forced together at food sources during dry spells, causing them to reproduce at a rapid rate. And even worse, thanks to climate change warming up the world, swarms of locusts will only get more frequent. Prolonged bouts of wet weather will create environments where locusts will start to thrive. And as a final cherry on top, nothing can stop them from swarming. I guess all we can do, ironically, is pray. Flee the fleas.
I can say honestly that in the 26 years of doing pest control in New York City, that I've never had anyone call us because they had a problem with locusts. It's just not a problem that happens in New York City.
You might think all fleas are those tiny blood-sucking insects that latch onto your pets and make them itch. But snow fleas, despite the name, they're not actually fleas, even though they do jump around like the blood-sucking kind. You might have heard them called springtails, but despite that name, these insects thrive in winter and moist, damp areas. And I mean thrive. Back in 2012, a man in Alabama heard his cat making some strange noises down in the basement. He went to investigate only to be greeted by this freakishly festering pile of snow fleas.
That is a real infestation.
He'd never seen anything like it. By his estimates, there were roughly 50,000 of the insidious critters scattered around his basement. Now, snow fleas usually make their homes outdoors, but on occasion,
I wonder how he came to the conclusion that there were 50,000 snow fleas. How do you count that? Just a question. And here in New York City, we've never encountered snow fleas. We've dealt with tons of flea problems here in New York City. People have cats and dogs, and our pets pick up fleas when they go to the park, or if they go to around other animals. They pick up fleas, and flea problems can be a very common problem here in New York City, and we've dealt with here at A-List Exterminator. We've dealt with a lot of flea problems for a lot of different clients, but snow fleas is not something that we've ever dealt with here in New York City.
Occasion, they'll hop their way into your house. And if they find a perfectly moist patch, they'll start to multiply like crazy. Luckily, unlike the other kind of flea, snow fleas don't bite, so the biggest nuisance they'll cause you is their large numbers, just as our Alabaman friend discovered. But wait, where does the snow and snow fleas come from? Well, maybe this will answer your question. Somehow they look less sinister all piled up. Snowmelt attracts swarms of snow fleas in droves, and because of their dark color, they show up prominently against it. That's enough to put a real blemish on your white Christmas. Which of these
Thank you very much. I want to thank you very much for taking your time to watch this video to the very end. I hope that you will like and subscribe, and I hope that you will check out other videos on my channel soon. Thank you very much. Take care.